6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I've just done it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Is there any audience? Just because everyone's got questions.
no. Oh no. Oh no.
Good evening and welcome to the annual University of Salford Presidential Election Debate, brought to you by Quays TV. I'm Mairead Cleary.
I'm Grace Maley.
And I'm Josh Kelly.
Tonight, 4 candidates who have different views on the future of our students' union are fighting for our votes in order to become your next president.
An array of candidates join us in the studio tonight, and over the next hour and a half, they will debate live, taking your questions. Now, tonight's agenda, we'll see our candidates tackle some of the most important issues to face us as University of Salford students on topics that really matter to us.
Questions have been kept under wraps until tonight, and the candidates don't know what will be asked. They'll receive questions from our studio audience, which have been randomly selected on a variety of topics affecting us all. Now let's crack on. Your 2019 University of Salford Students' Union presidential candidates are Evie Adams, Sabbatical Officer for Science and Technology.
Michelle Sadie, Masters in Public Relations and Digital Communications.
And Hattie Ruddock, BSc Human Resource Management and SU Trustee.
Efstanios Katsiras was extended an invitation to come to tonight, but did not respond. Also, Safia Mahmood responded but was unable to attend tonight's debate. Now, you can follow tonight's commentary and discussion of tonight's debate online using the hashtag SUPED2019. Join the debate by tweeting your comments and your questions by using this hashtag, and we'll show them throughout the programme. Now, time for opening statements, where the candidates will each have 2 minutes to tell us why they should be your next president. Let's start with Evie Adams.
Hello, my name is Evie Adams and I am the current Sabbatical Officer for Science and Technology and also the North West Buck Sabbatical Officer Secretary. I am from the School of the Environmental Life Sciences and studied wildlife and practical conservation and did a foundation degree in environmental science. I have experience from running and participating in many sports and societies, as well as being a student rep since 2013. I'm running to represent students as a hard-working and dedicated officer who wants to encourage all students to feel welcome and included at the University of Salford. With my experience, I believe I will be able to support a strong sabbatical officer team, lead our student union and our student body throughout the next academic year, as well as represent all students in a pragmatic and professional way. My manifesto is simple. It's on sustainability and environmental accountability, housing support and advice, and there is an open manifesto point for current issues and problems here at the University of Salford. Voting for me will give you a president you know and you can trust. Vote for Evie.
Thank you, Evie. Next up, we have Hetty Reddick.
Hi, I'm Hattie and I am running to be your SU President. So I'm a third-year Human Resources Management student and I've also got lots of different roles and experiences within the Students' Union. After 3 years of being in different rep roles and representing you locally and nationally, to be honest, I'm a bit frustrated. It's time that the SU campaigned for solutions to student issues and becomes a transformative and radical place that changes student lives. An SU that is there for you. I'm running on a platform that gives you the best possible experience. To campaign to have reading weeks for all courses, not just a select few. To campaign against hate crime on campus and to make sure that commuting students are supported. University is already hard. It doesn't need to be harder. You need an SU and an SU president that makes your lives at Salford as easy as possible in order to have the best experience.
Thank you very much, Hetty. Next up, we have Michelle.
Hi, my name is Michelle Saidi, and I am a Masters in Public Relations and Digital Communication student here at Salford, and I'm also the student representative on my course and the School of Journalism rep as well. And basically, the reason why I'm running is the lack of integration that I felt as being based in Media City, with the other campus being at the other side of the world, as we call it. And for me, it's important to feel integrated because that's where inspiration comes from. Because if you feel a part of the community, there's nothing that's going to stop you from wanting to wanted to change it or to improve it or feel inspired to want to become a better person. One of my favourite quotes to say in this world is be the change that you want to see. And one of the changes that I wanted to see was integration amongst students and the lack of cohesion between all of us. And that's something that I wanted to fight for. That's something that I believe is important. And that's something that I believe that if we were to work together, if we were to put our heads together, and if we were to stand together, we'll be able to improve on. As a student myself, I can go on and say I believe in mental health and improving the services. Absolutely. I believe in student health. Absolutely. Student life improvement on campus. Absolutely. But what does that mean if you don't feel a part of the campus, that you're part of the campus, part of the school that you come from? And so that is why my motivation for running comes from. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Thank you, candidates. Make sure you stay with us here on Quays TV. You're watching the presidential election debate. We'll see you shortly.
Elections, and I'm running business and law. My promises to you are recorded lectures, conflict-free deadlines, open access to your officers, subsidised sports and society fees, and a student platform to decide SU events. Thanks for watching, and vote Dan for business and law.
Goodbye.
Live at 5.
Live at 5.
Live at 5.
Live at 5. This is the hour.
As she's sporting, I noticed these before, some very cool pants.
They look like my Jack Wills pyjamas.
I seen that, yeah.
Whoa!
Do you think there's any condoms in here?
Do I believe in UFOs? I believe in there's someone out there.
Off in the last few minutes. I've added a cheeky hat to it.
Because I'm well known for my hat.
The Hour, every Monday from 5, only on Quays TV.
Welcome back to the presidential election debate brought to you by Quays TV. You've heard our candidates' opening statements, but now it's time to hear from you, the students. We go now to Oliver Thorpe for our first question of the evening. Oliver.
A lot of students go deep into their overdrafts and find themselves in debt. What can the Students' Union do to help them?
So, candidates, we ask you, what can students do to benefit them from going into their overdraft? What can help them from going into their overdraft? What would you do? Evie?
Yeah, the Student Union provides quite a few resources on money matters and different NUS policies, because we're supported by the NUS on money matters and student finance. We can also help advise you and signpost you to the university finance team, who are there to support you with different advisors, as well as take time to actually listen. You can also book in with advisors who generally do academic support. So if it's around academic financial issues as well as personal issues, we can help you in that sense. One of the things that's quite interesting is at the moment we're bidding for more advisors to do with our block grant as the Students' Union, and that I think will link in nicely with student finance. But that's something that obviously is a current issue with students, and I think as president and with 4 new sabbatical officers, we can work together on working to support students for student finance issues.
So the university has a hardship fund which students can apply to. However, that hardship fund is quite severely not accessible. I went to go and speak to them earlier this year because accommodation costs are way too high, and that was my main thing. I could not afford, I had to choose between my rent and eating at one point. So I went to go and speak to the hardship fund, and they need training, the advisors need a lot better training on how to help students. Because, for example, they asked me if I was willing to take out a loan that requires me to pay interest on repaying that loan. Now, I'm Muslim, and that's against my faith. So there needs to be a lot more cultural awareness from advisors that are advising students on financial issues. We also need to be campaigning for accommodation costs to be a hell of a lot lower.
And Michelle, what about you?
For me, what we need to understand is sometimes going into overdraft, it's unavoidable. You might be the best person when it comes to money and handling your finances, and sometimes it's not something that you can avoid. What needs to be put in place is, there's a hardship fund, yes, but it's very means tested, to use a government term, because you have to meet certain requirements. There's always these rules that's coming along with it. I think if I was to be elected your president, it's about talking to donors, to people that are willing to support and fund a pot from the Students' Union that will then help students that are in those situations. And sometimes it's nice if they're grants and not loans, because at least, you know, some people won't borrow, they'd rather probably suffer. Like, I have a fear of debt, for example. So this will be something to allow students who have that fear of debt, or fear of not being able to then repay that, or feeling like you have someone at the back of your head waiting for you to pay it back. So maybe a pot of money that's put aside to allow those students that they don't necessarily have to pay back at all, and it's not very strict means tested process.
So would a suggestion be to remove the means testing for people who do need financial help? What do you think to that? We'll go with you first, Stevie.
I think there's a lot more to be done around this subject. I think helping students on campus, like touch base day to day, by using advisors and getting that one-to-one contact for everyone's situation, because everyone's situation is different, as the other candidates mentioned. But I think also looking at what the university offers and helping to adapt that for each individual student. I think asking to perhaps look at how we structure our finances internally, and whether or not we can retrain some of our current advisors and expand on our advisors that are academic, but also look at finance advisors through the Students' Union. Looking at that at the moment for housing is one of my main manifesto points, but if this is a current issue for students, I think looking at advisors and making sure that yes, there's means tested, but how can we prove to all students that you can get help, and this university is there to help you and not just to provide a degree for you.
Hattie?
I don't agree with means testing at all. I think it's ridiculous. For example, that's what Student Finance England use, but let's say that your parents do earn enough for you to be on minimum loan, but you've got siblings, you know, and your parents also are not just going to give you money. Like, we're adults now, and I think the university needs to be recognising that with means testing, sometimes you end up in a desperate situation, and students need help in that desperate situation, because we can't work full time. We're doing degrees.
And Michelle?
Yeah, absolutely agree with Evie, and it's also in the sense that I understand there are processes in place to help students in those hardship situations. However, they're very ambiguous in how they're presented. So you're always having to then go speak to someone to give you advice. But you're already in that situation where you need the money, and yet you're advised to go speak to someone else about it, and you're going through all these different channels, when there should just be a really clear, concise way where you can go in, you can tell someone, I need help, help me out, this is what I need, and someone just be able to help you out on the spot. And I think because it's means tested, you're being redirected to different avenues until someone believes you are now worthy of this money. And I don't think that's always fair, because sometimes what the conclusions aren't always fair for students that really do need the money.
One thing I would say as well is some students often feel like pressured and that they can't ask for help. So how would you encourage students to ask the Student Union for help?
One of my biggest points in my manifesto is dialogue. Like, let's have a conversation about these things. There's a lot of things that have a stigma attached to them, and asking for help as a student is one of them, because there's this perception that you're now a grown-up and you're not going off and you're living your life and it's a first step towards the rest of your life, when Yeah, but I still need help. You know, that's why bank loans exist for adults. That's why grants or bursaries or loans exist in the first place, to help people who can't afford or get that money instantly. And it's about doing that dialogue. And like I said, some of the processes in order to get help are so unclear and unfair that they don't know that there's help available, or if help is available, they don't want to go and disclose every single reason why they no longer have money in their pocket, because there's no platform that allows that safe environment where you can talk about it. So as long as we can have an open dialogue and be clear that you're in university, yes, but there are platforms in place to help you out, I think it will make everything much more simpler and fair for everyone.
Yeah. Hattie?
I think the whole booking and appointment thing can really be pressurising for students. I know if you're in a desperate situation, or if you've got an existing mental health issue, the whole structured booking an appointment in a specific time can be really scary and can put people off, which is why I think, for example, the SU has Rafiki. I think it's a fantastic thing because it's a drop-in, and I think creating almost drop-in, I understand like that you could have 20 students all come in at once, but if the SU created provisions for someone to just drop in and not have to book that appointment and say, listen, help me now, I need it, could really encourage students to come in.
And Evie?
I think going back to the original question is how to ask for help, and I think that's a big part of what our role would be as president, is someone that's a familiar face that you can ask informally, like, how do I get help? How can I use the services? What's the best for me? So educating ourselves as sabbatical officers is, I think, the first step. Then educating our student reps, our school reps, the communication structure through our student system is a big part of it. Obviously, our services need to be signposted correctly. I think updating our website and making sure that everything that's on our website that's a touch of the button that students can do at home at 3 AM or at 9 o'clock in the morning as they're commuting in, I think that's a really good state in getting help, but also just being able to drop us a message through our different social media channels, just informally going, how do I get help? And us being able to signpost them in the best possible way is, I think, the best way for students to understand how to get help.
Do you think that as well will be able to help students who are looking to tackle high rent as well?
Yeah, I think you need to be approachable. I think high rent is an issue not only at this university but across the Greater Manchester area. Whether you're living in Fallowfield with your friends or you're commuting in and you've decided to commute in because of the high rent costs around Salford, I think that having that approachable, like, honest conversation with people about the renting issues around Salford is the next step. It's the next step of getting help as a student population here in Salford.
And what would you two do to tackle the high rent issues, Michelle?
This is my second time at the rodeo as a student, so I'm doing, like I said, I'm doing my masters, and when it comes to rent issues, I think there should be a platform to negotiate. So if there can be a means tested to get a loan, why can't the same be said for student accommodation? Anything's possible when you are a student, and I honestly believe that because I've done some amazing things as a student. And so it's about maybe creating a dialogue between the landlords, as you say, and the students, and coming up with ways in which maybe there's a way that you can volunteer at your accommodation for a reduced fee. Maybe there's a way that you can, if you do group bookings, you'll get a discount. There's different ways around this that will allow you to still stay in nice accommodations at the same time paying affordable fees, because there's no way to say one can't be true without the other. So, like I said, just to reiterate, maybe volunteering at accommodations, not means tested, but making sure you have a conversation about how much you can afford to pay. Because some accommodations aren't even that nice, but you're paying a lot just to be able to make sure that you're still making it to your lectures. And some people then end up having to work 2 jobs and study just to be able to then have food on the table, because student finance won't pay for everything. So I think that's what I would do.
I'm just going to move on to Hattie as well. So what would you say that you offer that's different to what these have said previously?
I think in my heart is activism, to be honest, and I think the SU need to be advocating for the student accommodations to be back under the university's control. So we look at unions and universities across the country, a lot of accommodations are actually owned by the university, and at Salford they're owned by campus living villages, they're owned by IQ, they're owned by Tramways, which is sanctuary students. if the university had some form of way of controlling our accommodation and owning that accommodation, then the union has a lot more power.
And I know you've said as well in your manifesto that you want to help commuters and let students use their rail cards before 10 AM. How do you plan on doing that?
It's about creating that conversation. No one's actually ever brought it up. So, for example, I'm a current NUS delegate, and I have passed a motion through the Student Council to take that motion to NUS conference this year, and hopefully to get the NUS to support that initially, even if I'm not elected as president. So getting the NUS behind that would be a massive, because then it's a national conversation. But if Salford could create that conversation just with Greater Manchester Transport, then at least it's on the agenda. At least we're starting to make that progress. Because I'm not promising that that's going to happen, because it's a national thing. But I'll definitely fight the good fight for it.
And Evie, what have you got to compete with that?
Just adding on to what Hattie actually said, so as a sabbatical officer that's currently here, I'm working at the moment and I've been invited on the Greater Student Manchester Assembly. So that's Bolton University, the Royal College of Music, MMU and UOM, and we're working together already to tackle transport issues. This has already been raised that it's a current issue for all commuter students in the Greater Manchester area. So that topic is already being brought up. The fact it's going to NUS is even more lobbying, it's even more support, it's getting politicians aware of it on a local and a national scale. But I think what makes me different is the fact that I've come in, I moved to Salford. I didn't know anyone when I first lived here, and I made friends here and I've made so many amazing contacts. But I think the biggest thing for me is the housing, the support and advice, but perhaps looking at what other unions do, getting accreditation so landlords get accredited on what they do and what standard they hold. And also CLV, like, we're only partnered with them for so long, and then the university reclaim the buildings that are on our campus. So going, okay, if the CLV want to continue that relationship, how can we put a policy into the university to say, look, if you're going to continue working with CLV that are going to resource and staff our accommodation, what do we want as students? And having that conversation and getting that feedback from current students, from second years, from third years, from postgraduates that only live there for 1 year, as well as international students. I think that's a big thing. And asking about what do students actually want and need in accommodation, not just how much are you willing to pay.
Brilliant. Thank you, candidates. So for anyone who's watching at home, that's what they think, but what do you think? Use the hashtag SUPED2019 on Twitter and we will show your tweets throughout the programme. Our next question is with Abby. What's your question?
Should students be allowed to record in lectures, and how would you work with the university on this issue?
So let me just reiterate that question to our candidates. So the question is, how would you cooperate with the university to let students record in lectures? What do you think about that? What are your opinions and what do you think should be done? Basically, so we'll start with you, Hattie.
Yeah, I think recorded lectures should happen. It's happening across the country. It's already happening in some courses at Salford, and you know, we need to have equal access to get your degrees of other people. Sometimes you genuinely cannot make it into a lecture. You know, like students with mental health issues, students that fall ill, students with caring responsibilities. It's not easy to always commit exactly to 9 till 6, 5 days a week. It's not possible for some students. But also, it's proven that from other unions that have done it, that recorded lectures doesn't stop or hinder attendance. It just makes sure that, you know, you've always got that to refer back to. And I'm not someone that's afraid of having conversations. I've been doing it as school rep. I've been doing it as disabled students officer when I was in first year, and I sit on a board with the Pro Vice Chancellor at the moment about timetabling. I'm not afraid to have that conversation.
Evie?
So recorded lectures, I think they're an amazing opportunity for students as well as the university to be future-proof. I think being able to do that supports our international students around the world as well as our current students who obviously cannot make into lectures every day, especially if they're commuting or just under the weather or suffering from mental health issues. I think it depends when you talk about recorded lectures. At the moment you can, if you ask the academics permission, record voice and audio, and that's anyone can do that. I did that because I struggled with some dialects and some accents. But videos are a different thing. That's because it's GDPR and people's faces. So that's where we need to look at the policy, look at what other unions and universities are doing and review it. I think that, yes, it's being trialled at the moment in business and law school and in other courses, and they are trialling it and they are wanting to do it. With the new building coming in on main campus, all lecture halls in that building will have recorded lecture capability if the current policy is passed through the university administrators and so on and so forth. But I think we need to look at a module-based review. I think, yes, it will work for some lecture lectures amazingly. For other ones, such as research academics, where it's their research they're discussing and it's not been like approved / they don't own that research yet, that's where I'm a little bit hesitant, coming from a scientific background, that I think lecturers will feel that they can be plagiarised, and that's not what we want. What we want is to share information, we want to learn and we want to educate ourselves, and by recording lectures, that's fantastic.
And what about you?
I completely support the idea of having recorded lectures, and I'll even take it further and say maybe even possibly live lectures, because if there is evidence to suggest that it doesn't affect your attendance or in general, like I think that's the biggest worry, isn't it? When your lectures are recorded, then well, you just be like, well, forget it, I'll watch it online later or I'll listen to it on Blackboard or whatever. But if there's a platform, I don't know, maybe to have your lectures live, then it wouldn't be such an issue, because then it's either way you're learning, either way you've paid for your education, whether or not you turn up or not, and it goes back to the idea of that value for money kind of thing.
So if you're completely for it, what would you think to the lecturers who say don't want to be filmed?
I think it's get with the times. We're living in a time where it's becoming digital. You see our lecturers, I'm based in this building right here at Arts and Media, where lecturers are pushing themselves to bring in new innovative ways to educate their students. And for lecturers that don't want that, I mean, it's fair enough, but it's about maybe trying to accommodate that, because ultimately it's about the students. Like Eva mentioned, research. If that's the problem, then yes. I think it's about not them wanting to say, well, no, I don't want to record my lectures, but it's finding out why, because I think there's always a solution to every problem. If it's because they don't want to get plagiarized, fine. If they're worried about attendance, show them the research that shows otherwise. There are ways around all these no's, because they might be saying no, but they really just want to say yes.
And what do you two think about that? What would you two do to encourage the lecturers to want to be recorded?
I think showing them statistics from other universities and also explaining, look, this is the digital age. We are the instant gratification generation, so we need to keep with the times. To retain students and to recruit new students, this is something the University of Salford needs to offer.
And what about you, Hattie?
At the same time, I agree that we do need to offer this, but part of me saying that, you know, as president, we'd also be representing PhD students. They're also lecturers, and if there is a genuine reason that they really do not want to be filmed, for example, research or for any data protection, things like that, there are ways around it. If it's just their face they don't want on it, one thing that they could do, screen record the actual lecture itself and then put a voice over. But there needs to be a conversation about why they don't want to be recorded. And then if they don't, let's find that solution.
Yeah, module by module.
Yeah.
One step at a time.
Definitely. It's not one size all fits all.
Let's just enter the digital world. That's where we are. It's a digital age. That's all I can say. And it's just one step towards making sure that as students we get the best out of our education.
What would you two say to contradict that, or do you agree?
I think everything that lecturers do, whether it's recorded or not recorded, is beneficial for our education. I think the fact that lecturers often talk about exams and our assessments, and that's something that they may not want to feel like and share, because that's something that can be taken in the wrong way, the way they're trying to help us out, especially when it comes to like small seminars, where it's like, do we want to record small seminars or lectures? And I think that's where it comes down to, module by module, one step at a time. Like, have the conversation, let's put it on the table, let's look at all the different courses that we do and all the different modules, from PhDs to foundation degrees, because there is a way forward and other universities are doing it. We're just not quite there yet, so having that on our agenda as electoral candidates is always positive.
The other thing is, for lecturers who say don't want to be a part of this, should they be able to opt out? Or maybe a student in the class, if a student puts their hand up and says, like, asks a question, how maybe that student doesn't want to be recorded, so what would be your solution to that problem?
It's a 24-hour review, so Manchester do this. So the lectures are recorded, say, on a Monday, for Monday lectures, are then put out 24 hours later after they've been reviewed, to make sure that there's nothing there that can be taken the wrong way, in the nicest way. If something happens, like say there's a fire drill, obviously that lecture would be edited, and that's the sort of thing that we can look at reviewing. Copying what other universities do, yes, it's plagiarism of other universities, but they've got the right idea. And the University of Salford does want this, it's just trialling it at the moment and getting the right method for us. because we are different. We're the University of Salford. So what works for us doesn't work for other universities, but we need a solution now and in the next academic year.
And what about you, Michelle? What would you say to that?
I believe that teachers are educators for a reason. I think some of the best teachers are those that always are trying to educate themselves as well at the same time. So if there are reasons behind why they don't want to do this, I think it's obviously part of us as the Students' Union to educate them on that, but at the same time to give them evidence or to show them a way to go and do the research and find this out. And like Hatta said, there's ways to screen record without your face being in it, or even if it's, I don't know, finding ways just to find other ways that you can use the technology that exists today to put the lectures online in a way that's different, because sometimes even if it's a PowerPoint that's put on, not all students are looking at the PowerPoint, but maybe if they felt like they're, you know, in the lecture again, and we're just assuming it's for students that are not coming in. It's also for students that have been in the lecture, no matter something they didn't understand or something that went too quick for them, and to go back and look at that as well. So it's about making sure that when they're making these decisions and saying no, is it for their benefit or for their students' benefit?
But a lot of students would argue that for £9 a year, surely you should just go to a lecture, and surely the lecturers shouldn't have to upload the PowerPoint. Uploading a PowerPoint's not good enough. So what would you say to that?
Okay, so all my lectures are completely PowerPoint, read off. Sometimes they go too fast. Sometimes you need that extra second just to write something down or go back. And at the same time, if you've got a 50-slide lecture, which is very, very common in my course, you're not going to get everything. Maybe there's some noise behind you where you couldn't hear it. Like, I'm paying £9 a year, I should be able to go back and visit what my lecturer said without necessarily having to see a time that they're free where I may also have a lecture. I'm in complete support, to be honest, of recorded lectures.
What about you, Evie? What do you think to that?
I think it comes down to a bigger conversation as well. Like £9 is a lot of money for any student, whether that's like a foundation degree, which is half that, or undergraduates where it's full £9 for each month, or those that have to take an extra semester. Like, it's a lot of money. I think we come down to the conversation of what is value for money? What are we getting for our money? If lecturers want to record, that's great, that's fantastic, they're on board. But it's those that are challenging it that I think is what we have to listen to. I think it's difficult. We've talked about like some seminars and some other issues around actually recording lectures, but also what happens if your lectures are in labs? What happens if your lectures are demonstrational lectures where it's you're there to learn practically as well as mentally? And I think that's when it comes down to, okay, you've got to be there to experience being at university, but sometimes you just need that little bit of help, whether that's coming down to exam revision or you're just revising what's being said in a lecture for your coursework or your whatever you're doing for your portfolio. Like, you need that extra help, and this generation we need to update our university courses and get our money's worth for that £9.
Brilliant. We will leave that question there. So that's what they think. What do you think at home? As per usual, use the hashtag #Super2019 and we will show your tweets throughout the programme. You're watching the University of Salford presidential election debate. We'll be right back.
Oh, hi. I didn't see you there. My name's Jack Lyon and I'm running to be your next Science Technology Officer. I'm running a campaign of reducing membership fees for sporting societies with a sustainable investment plan, ensuring that all students are listened to, including commuter students like myself, and making sure to care for every student in our university. Even though I'm science technology, I care for us all. If you like the sound of this, then make a radical change and vote Jack PP Lyon to be your next Science Technology Officer this week. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Temi. I'm in my final year of Accounting and Finance and I'm running to be your Business and Law Officer. I believe everyone's student experience can be improved, which is what I hope to do through my manifesto points. Vote me for number 1.
Welcome back to the University of Salford's presidential election debate. I'm Josh Kelly. Earlier on we heard all about debt, we heard about lectures being filmed. This is what you guys at home have been saying. Just having some problems here, so we're going to continue tonight with another audience question. So we're going to go to Catherine Tuggy. So what's your question?
How can you guarantee that you will fulfil the role of the SU president?
Here we go. So how will you guarantee that you will fulfil the role of the SU president, Hattie?
So I've already fulfilled some roles in the SU. I've been school rep, I have been disabled students officer, I've been on 4 society committees, including a society chair. So I've proved I can fulfil roles. But the SU president, at the end of the day, this SU has changed my life. I was going to drop out of university in first year, and I decided not to because I was so integrated in a society and I didn't want to lose that friendship. And this SU means so much to me. It's one of the reasons I won Student Union Personality of the Year last year. And it's like a lot, it's a big role and I understand that, but at the same time, it's something I'm really, really passionate about.
Evie.
For me to fulfil the role, well, this past 10 months I've been working as a sabbatical officer for science and technology, and from that I've had the scrutiny committee, I've been accountable to students every day that I turn up for my job, and I think that's half of me already trying to fulfil this role. I'm here not because I want to, I'm here because I want to be there for you. I need to be there for you. I'm a scientist, I'm a conservationist, I've worked all around the world for other NGOs, and I'm here working for your charity, your union of students, and I want to fulfil this role not only because of my manifesto, but because every day I get to see a student and I get to help them, and getting that feedback and being able to say, oh, you're welcome, or no worries, it's just my job, is part of me wanting to fulfill this role. I think part of what I want to do is work with a new sabbatical team that's strong, that's wants to be in, that's starting fresh. That's a big thing as well. We've got so much new stuff going on with the strategic plan, we've got a new plan for Welcome coming up, and we've got so much else going on. We've got varsity coming up as well, and being able to continue on at the University of Salford in the Students' Union would be an amazing opportunity. So I don't think it's about me fulfilling the role, it's more about what can I do for you to be the best president for you.
Wonderful, thank you. Michelle, how would you fulfil the role as the SU president?
For me, to know that I have fulfilled the role is getting the feedback. It's working in partnership with the people that put me where I am. And for me, that's the most important thing. So if I can look at someone who elected me and say, did I do what I promised I was going to do? I said I wanted to do this and this and this in my manifesto. Did I do it? And if not, why do you think that? Or what could I have done better? Because I think in a role like as a president, yes, you're a president, but you're also in charge of different parts, but you're not running people, and that's what you need to also understand. So for me, it's about making sure there's that rapport the whole time that you're in term. That way people understand what you're about the whole time. It's also important to understand that it's a role where you're going to be learning and growing as you're going. So we don't have all the answers, but what's most important is we're willing to find out on behalf of the people that elected us.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. So Hattie, in your manifesto, you pledged to eradicate hate crime. Previous candidates across the years have also pledged the same. How do you plan on doing this and being successful?
So I think the main thing is we need to know how much hate crime is actually going on campus, because we've seen a rise of it across the country. I mean, just look at what's happened at Warwick over the past few months. So we need to have a look at what's going on. One of the things that's been going on across a lot of campuses is having a look specifically at asking the students, what are your experiences? Because I'm not going to project my experiences on every single student. That's not fair, and it's not an accurate picture of what's going on. So speaking to students, doing some research on what's going on is the first step, because I can't give you all the solutions right now without actually having had such an in-depth look, which is, if you elect me as your president, I'll be able to do that.
Do you know how many instances of hate crime on campus there are? Do you have the stats?
It's hard because there's so much that's unreported, yes. But I can tell you there's definitely been a rise. I can't, yeah. It's not those figures aren't anywhere.
Yes, no worries. Evie, what do you have to do? What do you have to say to eradicating hate crime on campus?
I think the biggest thing we need to do to eradicate hate crime is start working with local communities, working with local religious groups, religious leaders on campus as well. And I think the communication and building up relationships, working and professional, to make sure students feel welcome and included, and making sure that they are able to go through the right lines or speak to the right person about reporting it, because that starts giving us ideas of exactly what's going on, whether that's backtracking reports and looking forward and moving forward and being like, okay, this is a current issue. It's the same with security and safety on campus. Like, there needs to be an easier way to communicate this all the way through to ourselves and to the university, and making sure that the security and the university take it serious, and making sure that the police are involved and are getting those case numbers.
Michelle, do you have anything to say about eradicating hate crime on campus?
I think that for me it's more about maybe defining hate crime, because I think some people just assume you say hateful words and that's it, it doesn't count as anything, when it's a crime for a reason. So I think it's starting that dialogue to understand what hate crime is, the consequences of that, what it does to the other person at the other end, and what the results for the person on the other side of the conversation. And I think when you start there and you're telling people what it is, what it means, that's where you can actually then start to talk about ways to get rid of that. I mean, there is Hate Crime Week, but a lot of institutions don't really do anything in that week. And it's just 1 week, but it's something that happens 365 days, 66 in a leap year, that you kind of forget and brush off until it happens to you, because it happens to anyone, no matter where you're from, what background, skin colour, everything. And I think it's understanding what that means, what the consequences are, and then start then talking about how you can do, what you can do to eradicate it.
You mentioned just a second ago that a lot of hate crimes on campus go unreported. So how can we encourage students to report crimes when they happen to them?
So the SU is a hate crime reporting centre, but I only know that because I knew the president last year. A lot of students I've spoken to this week have no idea that there's a hate crime reporting centre on campus. So we need to be publishing that. We need to be telling people that. Until a few months ago, if something had happened to me on campus, I wouldn't have thought of necessarily reporting it to the SU, even though I'm engaged with the SU. And that is worrying. So we need to be making sure that people know that where they can report it, and that they'll be safe reporting it, because especially with students of faith, there is a fear sometimes of speaking about things that have happened to them because of really racist schemes like Prevent. So we need to be making students feel safe about reporting that as well.
Okay, Evie, do you have anything to say about how students can feel safe and feel welcome at reporting hate crimes that happen to them to the SU?
I think it comes down to educating ourselves. I think educating the sabbatical officer teams and making sure that students know and how to signpost. I think working with our student volunteers in lots of different sectors, from our sports teams and our societies, working our wellbeing reps, but also through our course rep system, which is a whole 600 plus number of students. I think looking at what we do for students and how we as staff and students report it and how seriously it should be taken. I think working more closely with the wellbeing team, looking at revising sabbatical officer training, volunteer officer training, and looking at aligning ourselves with what the wellbeing team want to promote as well as what we as students need.
Michelle?
I agree with everything that they've just said, but obviously what I would add on top of that is once you open the door to start talking about it, but also at the same time, if you understand your actions, then you also would understand the consequences. And I think that's what, like Eva just said, working with the course reps, school reps, working up the ladders of representatives, people who've put themselves forward to be the voices of other students, is giving them that platform to be able to educate their peers. Because sometimes it's better coming from someone who's on the same level as you than it is coming from someone else who's calling themselves a doctor or who's calling themselves a teacher. So I think that's the base level of where it should start.
Peer-to-peer communication is necessary at Salford.
Okay, so we've got a question from Twitter here, and it's Alex Hughes, and he's asking, if there's no research and stats, as Hattie mentioned earlier, about unreported hate crime, how do we know that there is a large amount of it on campus?
Okay, so I'm in the ISOC, and the amount of people I've spoken to or it's just come up in conversation, it's a bit wild. Like, the amount of times that particularly women will come into the prayer centre and just say, oh, this just happened. Like, people don't feel safe reporting it. And it does happen because we found far-right literature on campus. There was a protest here just about 2 weeks ago because Tommy Robinson was on campus, essentially. He was on Media City. So how are students going to feel safe when things like that are happening?
Michelle, should there be improvements to mental health services on campus, and what would you do to improve the services that are currently there?
To be honest, I was so impressed by the facilities and the resources that are available right now for mental health, because a lot of universities don't have that, and I only had an appreciation for it because my friend who goes to a totally different uni saw how well informed our website was and how many resources are available, but that's because I was on the website. I feel like there needs to be other ways that can circulate all these resources, all these platforms, and where to go for them. Like, I know that there's Ask Us and all these, but personally I wouldn't know where to go for them. But also, like I said, I'm based at Media City. I don't always want to, if let's say I was feeling some kind of way and I needed to talk to someone, take a whole bus journey to go to another campus just to be able to talk to someone about my feelings, because one, it's a pride thing, and two, sometimes you have deadlines, you don't have time for that. So I think making sure that there's access to these services on all the campuses, making sure that everyone is aware that they're there, when they're there, and how to access them.
Okay. Evie, I'll repeat the same question to you. Should there be improvements to mental health services in campus, and what would you do to improve the services that already exist?
I think Rafiki, which is our current mental health support system through the Student Union, needs to be open longer, and it needs to be open every day, including weekends. I think that's a step in the right direction, just one step. I think looking at getting staff trained in mental health first aid and recognising the signs is the other step, but that comes down to working with the university to retrain their staff and saying, look, this is something that's becoming more and more hot topic. It's the elephant in the room with many academics, and I think getting them first aid trained but mentally health first aid trained is the next step. And the third step is induction lectures. The first day you come to university and the first lectures you turn up with is saying, okay, these are what we can do for your course. This is what the Student Union is, but this is what support there is for your mental health and support there is for your physical health as well. And getting that in the induction lectures is the final step. Once we have that, every year we can build on that, and that can be a long-term solution to making sure that people are aware, the communication's there, and we can signpost students to get help.
Hattie.
So we've got the wellbeing services here are great. If you don't need immediate help, and if you can wait for 6 weeks, and then if you can get into them if they think you're serious enough, that's not okay. Our mental health services desperately need help. So, great. I think Rafiki, brilliant thing. It is currently only open 4 days a week at very specific times, but I'd go one step further than Evie. I'd bring it onto Media City, because it's great to have it on Peel Park in the SU, but it's not in a room where anyone really knows exists. And Mary C. Cole and Allerton, it is a walk away, but it's probably about the same distance from Maxwell if you walk it. But Media City, as Michelle said, is a whole bus ride away. And if you're only there for 5 minutes, that was really not worth the half an hour there and then the half an hour back. So I'd bring it over to Media City, but that includes getting more volunteers into Rafiki. It includes bringing the Samaritans back in to train the students that are volunteering. Again, university staff members need training on this as well. So in my first year, exam invigilators in the business school were trained on mental health first aid in case a student had a crisis in an exam. Why is that not across the university? Why is that only in the business school? And it's only in the business school because a student brought it up because they had a crisis in an exam. That should have been done a very long time ago. 3 years on, we shouldn't still be having this conversation.
So a second ago you mentioned about waiting times for students trying to access mental health services. So what would you do to try and cut down on these waiting times that students are facing?
It's money and it's bringing people in, but I'd get more staff, or I'd at least look at how appointments are allocated. So the way I've seen it, having gone through the wellbeing service, it's immediately, oh, you need counselling. It's like, no, not necessarily. Sometimes there could be groups that you can go to. Sometimes there could be just a one-off appointment, like an immediate appointment. They do offer immediate appointments at very specific times if you book at 9 AM that day. That's not possible for some students. Some students work, some students are up till 6 o'clock in the morning worrying, and they're not up at 9. So I'd have a whole review of the system to say, how can we make this actually accessible for students?
Evie, it's been reported that a lot of students have struggled to get access to mental health services. So how would you plan on solving this?
I think communication. I think going back to induction lectures, obviously like refreshing what we're doing through our inductions and how we communicate ourselves, but also looking at signposting students through social media, our communication structure through our website, and also making sure that the university are aware that they need to have some sort of channel, either that's Twitter, Instagram, or a new Facebook, or whatever it is, to make sure students can communicate themselves and find out the information here, now, and within the next hour, basically. When they're in crisis, they need it now, and they need it to know as soon as possible and with as much detail as possible.
Thank you. OK, so we're going to go to another Twitter question. Matt on Twitter has said that if a student doesn't study at the main campus and commutes to Media City, how are you going to allow them access to mental health services or improve their ability to access them? We've just touched on this. Michelle, would you like to say anything?
That's my kind of student, because that's me right there. And I think it goes back to digital. I think sometimes you don't want to go in that face-to-face in case someone might see you around the corner entering the building, because there's still this stigma attached to mental health, believe it or not, and there's still people who are still looking down on mental health or thinking that it's just an excuse to get out of doing a lot of things. And I know that because I've had people who have said that. And so maybe it's creating platform, whether it's online, whether it's private, whether it's a phone call, where you just talk to someone in your own time, away from everyone, where you've decided that I'm ready to do it. Because there's also that thing about the waiting time, like someone shouldn't be able to tell you you need counselling. Sometimes you just know yourself that I need to talk to someone, but because of this stigma attached to it is when things then end up going to extreme because you're not talking about it. And I think creating a platform where you can talk to someone away from everyone else is an important one.
OK, Evie, so same question to you. If a student doesn't study at the main campus and commutes to Media City, how are you going to allow them access to mental health services or improve their ability to access them?
I think influencing. So I don't know if you know, but at the moment the university have just purchased the Damson restaurant, which was just next to the main university building here at Media City. They are currently expanding that into an Ask Us and Wellbeing, as well as additional teaching and study area. That will be us influencing them to put more wellbeing services in that area, as well as helping them and us promote the student union and what's going on and what they can find out. That also links up to what communication structure they're planning for Media City, and as well as promoting the wellbeing services across campus. I think having that new extension for Media City will also help students become more aware of the services and the wellbeing communication structure that is already here at the university. And I think also suggesting to them that they have a wellbeing advisor based at University of Salford here in Media City, and that's how we can influence, as from sabbatical officer perception, on the campus master plans and on the Media City plan as they expand and develop for the future of the Media City campus.
Hattie?
So following on from Evie's point, it's all really well and good the university having bought that restaurant and turning it into something in the future, but it doesn't help students now. There is actually a phone-in service for the wellbeing service at the university, but students don't know about that. The wellbeing service needs to promote that, and the union also should be promoting that, because the way I see it, if you look at the wellbeing service, you think, oh, I've got to go in and speak to them, and they are based in University House, but you can actually ring in. But the only reason I know that is because I've had a ring-in appointment, and it was offered to me when I couldn't make it onto campus, and students should be being made aware of that, and that conversation needs to happen.
OK, so we're just going to touch on your manifestos for a second. Evie, your manifesto is almost entirely about the environment. So what other issues would you campaign on as SU President?
My other issues, apart from the environment and sustainability, is my housing support and advice rules. So coming from an experience of living in private halls as well and private accommodation, as well as living on campus in the old Horlock halls before Peel Park, I experienced like very, very negative as well as very, very positive accommodation. And I think being able to rate that, rank that and create a blacklist for landlords so that new students and current students can look at exactly who they're going with and what issues other students have faced, whether that's accommodation areas, and also getting support on contracts and getting advice on how much is this rent deposit too much, or am I being charged too much for this service to get a renter's contract. That's also a big thing. The last thing is I didn't put anything there. I put something blank. I want students to come and tell me what their current issues and problems are. I feel as a sabbatical officer you need to be with it in the moment and being able to discuss the current issues, whether that's the Brexit aftermath or current students, international students, postgraduate issues. The unification of the science schools has been a massive part of my current issue at the moment as a sabbatical officer, and leading forward, supporting the 4 new sabbatical officers in that area if elected, like being able to help them do their job, faculty-based, touch-based, in school, is a massive part of my manifesto.
Okay. So Michelle, it's clear in your manifesto that you're a busy woman. How will you be able to manage your time with all these roles and being present? How will students know that you are there for them when you need them?
I think the reason why I have gone for president is because I've learnt so much from these roles. They're over, done with, and I'm moving on. And I feel like that's moving in the right direction. But how will students know that I'm there for them is because I will 100% put my all into everything that I do. There is a reason why my manifesto doesn't mention a specific particular issue, because I have something to say about everything, you name it, I've got something to say about it. But that's why it's more broad. It's trying to understand what techniques I would use to then make sure that all those issues that students want tackled, want dealing with, or want fixed will be taken. So my manifesto is more of a how instead of what is going on.
Okay, so your manifesto, how is that going to communicate to the students that you're going to do a good job to them as the president?
So my manifesto is very based on the fact that not every student has a fair chance as other students on campus. For example, some courses have reading weeks, some don't. Either choose no courses have reading weeks or all courses have reading weeks, because at the end of the day, we're all students, we've all got to work to support ourselves as well. I think my whole manifesto is making sure that every student is listened to and gets that fair chance at their degrees, because we should be able to get onto campus, we should feel safe on campus, and then we should actually be able to do our degrees.
All right, thank you very much. This is the University of Salford presidential election debate. Use the hashtag SUPED2019. We'll be right back in a few minutes.
Hi, my name's Amy Jones and I'm running to be your Business and Law Sabbatical Officer. If elected, I will make sure that all lectures and seminars are recorded. I will make sure that there are free tampons and sanitary products in all university buildings. I'll get clearer and better communication network between lecturers, SABs and students. And finally, I'll make sure to continue the work done on consent that I did as Women's Officer. Make sure to vote Amy Jones #1 when voting for Business and Law.
Choose arts, choose media, choose a career, choose better mental health services, choose better student housing, choose better industry connections, choose experience, choose passion, choose dedication, choose honesty, choose someone you can trust, choose a friend, choose representation, choose a voice, choose integrity, choose a laugh, choose empathy, choose solidarity, choose your future, choose a media student, choose Hayward. Choose Hayward.
Hi, I'm George and I'm running for your Arts and Media Officer at the University of Salford. There are so many things within the university that I would change if I got elected into the position. Just some of these, including bringing in a printing allowance for the students whose courses require printing. Secondly, I would look into more mental health counsellors employed by the university to decrease waiting lists. Thirdly, I would look at more general or specialised computer suites over at the university's Media City campus. And finally, I want more focus on the minorities of the university. These include the LGBT community and the disabled students. Please vote for George for your Arts and Media Officer. Thank you.
Live at 5.
Live at 5.
Live at 5.
Live at 5. This is the hour.
As she's sporting, I noticed these wore some very cool pants.
They look like my Jack Wills pyjamas.
I seen that, yeah.
Whoa!
Do you think there's any condoms in here? Do I believe in UFOs? I believe in there's someone out there.
Off in the last few minutes. I've added a cheeky hat to it.
Because I'm well known for my hat.
The Hour, every Monday from 5, only on Quays TV. Welcome back to the final part of tonight's debate, where 3 out of the 5 presidential candidates are joining us to debate out some of the most important topics currently facing us as students. Don't forget, you can join in on the debate by tweeting us on your comments and questions by using the hashtag SUPED2019, and we'll show some of them throughout the programme. We move on now to our final audience question of the evening. We have it written down here. Some students have complaints that there's not enough events. Could we have more events on during the year to bring the 3 campuses together? Hetty, do you want to take that one?
Absolutely. I think we could do with more events, and we need to make sure students can actually go to their events. For example, not put in one of the biggest events on of the year, which is Rec Night, the night before a big performance for one of the societies. But these events need to make sure that all students can take part. There is a lot of very alcohol-focused events, and while we can see the student union starting to try to get less alcohol-based events, it's really intimidating. Like, we're facing a mental health crisis as a country altogether, and alcohol can sometimes affect that. You've got students that don't drink for whatever reason at all, and we need to make sure that students can actually go to the events that the SU are putting on.
Perfect. Thank you, Hattie. And yourself, what do you think, Evie?
I think the events that we put on at the moment are good. I think that they need a lot more feedback, and we need to communicate better with students, and I think getting more student staff for our events team is like a good way to start, and working on our inclusivity and our diversity of events is also good. I think publishing perhaps a timetable of events for the whole year will be the next step of obviously being able to communicate through the University of Salford like channels, their media channels, as well as making sure it's on like an email based thing. And I think word of mouth as well. I think the more students that want events will be able to communicate the events that are going on and can feed into the next sort of events that are happening. I also think that welcome needs to be looked at to be more inclusive and diverse. I think looking at what Northampton University did, where they had a wristband, but it was for every day for a whole month, and it was over 200 different events, not just 5 student nights out, made it more inclusive and more diverse, whether it was Nerf gun or the bungee cord, whether it was making pizza and learning how to cook or going to Cat's Cafe, as well as having like cultural tours and stuff like that. I think events need to be diverse. They need to also be repeated again in January for new intakes of students that come in January for semester 2. So I think, yeah, there's room for improvement, but it's also talking to us and also communication and getting that feedback. And that's all stuff we can work on, but getting a timetable as well so it doesn't clash with society stuff, so it doesn't clash with big bucks games or intramural competitions or co-university competitions. That's where I think we need to change the way we're looking at our events to make sure that they're inclusive, diverse, and they are what students want, and that makes them value for money.
That's great. And Michelle, what do you think?
You can never have enough events, especially because I'm gonna sit here and be honest. I've not gone to any SU events because everything happens at the other side of the country, as we at Media City like to call Peel Park, because everything, we'll get the email sometimes before the event's happening, but by the time you finish your lecture at 6 and you're supposed to make it for an event that's either starting at 6 or at 6:30 at the other campus, it's just not feasible, because by then you're already disheartened because you've just had your 5-hour lectures and then you're expected to then no chance to go home or anything like that. So I think it's important to have more events, but it's also important to put them all over the campuses, because then that way everybody's involved, everybody's included. Even if it's I don't know, the Lord of the Rings Society or something like that. I don't know if that exists, but even if it did, why not host it right here in Media City so that the students that are here can once in a while, you know, be involved as well. I think when you start doing it that way, it's not then intimidating when you go to the other campus because you already have friends in your society, but it's about then starting that platform in terms of making sure that they're held all over the campus, because then it's not as scary to go to the other side. It's not as intimidating to go to the other side. See, I keep calling it the other side. I don't mean to. It's just how it just seems the events run.
Okay, and bringing it back to you, Hattie, how do you think you could enhance the lives of incoming students in the university?
So, telling them actually what's going on, telling them that they're members of the Students' Union. So, I'm in 3rd year, and half of my course didn't know that they were members of the Students' Union. They didn't know what the Students' Union was, and we were in a module about unions. And that was genuinely a bit troubling for me. So, if we go from the get-go saying, listen, you're members of the Students' Union, you don't have to pay anything to join us, you don't have to sign up. You're already here, you can come to us, you can come to our events. But at the same time, we need to cater that for every single type of student. So this morning, I went and spoke to so many postgrads in the Sobe school, and every single one of them said, we feel ignored. And that was genuinely a bit upsetting that they felt that they weren't members of the SU. So if we create that conversation with every single type of student we could physically think of, even if it's just through a bit of an app, saying this is a bit of a guide to student life at Salford, but we've catered it to you. It won't take long. We've already got the information, we've already got the knowledge. Let's just write it down.
Okay, and for yourself, how do you think, Evie, that you could improve the lives of incoming students?
I think incoming students, obviously, that friendly face as soon as they arrive on campus, that friendly face, whether they're moving into first year halls or they're just collecting their ID cards, having that front face engagement from day one is also positive because it gives them an introduction to the student union without them really realising. Then making sure that we've got update content for their induction lectures, having the faculty sabbatical officers drop in and out of all the first year courses or masters or new PhD students or whatever it is, making sure that we're present and around for that. Also making sure that we're attending the events that we're putting on and having a face around and making sure that we're not only saying hi, welcome, but also be like, do you know who I am? Make sure that we've got that friendly communication and breaking those barriers to learning, but also engaging with the Students' Union.
Okay, Michelle, what do you think?
We have to understand that I think it's easy for these two because they have been, you know, first years, now they're in 3rd years, they've gone through the... I was that incoming student in September, but obviously at postgrad level, and I totally agree with the response that your postgraduate students said in terms of feeling ignored. Because, yeah, I'm a person who likes to know my rights and then educate other people, so I knew I was a member of the Students' Union before that. But when I mentioned the presidential election to my classmates, they're like, how do we vote? I'm like, well, because you're members of the Student Union. They're like, what? We didn't know that. Because then it's like, when it came, we did our, not necessarily induction, but went to pick up our ID cards. That's the only relationship we've had that's direct with Peel Campus. It happened, a Students' Union, University House, and then that was it. There's nothing else that then happened for postgraduate students to say, well, come, we'll have an event just for postgrads. You can all meet the ones in health and science, you can all meet the ones in all these other schools, nothing. And I think then that already creates that disconnection amongst students, because then, yeah, we can just go across the road and go to a bar after a lecture, but that's only going to be, what, once a week or once every term, depending on what your deadlines look like. So I think it's very important to make sure that when you're a new student, is to introduce you to the other parts of the campus. I mean, I know the BBC better than I know Peel Park campus, and that shouldn't be true at all, because I don't work at the BBC, I have nothing to do with the BBC, but I could probably give you a better tour of that than I can of the main campus. I think as an incoming student and someone who's experienced that, is maybe creating maybe a mentorship program where someone can show you around, share their friends, or at least just give you the what's what of the campus. That way it's not so intimidating, because you have to assume for an undergrad who's moving away from home for the first time or who's going to big school for the first time, that's
it's a different experience.
It's different, completely different.
So Evie, I just have a question for you briefly. A lot of students have complained about the price of parking on campus and they want to see it changed. Do you think that's possible?
I think it's possible in different ways. I think there's going to be different options that we can ask and work with the university for. The first thing is obviously they are looking to work with students and get a multi-storey car park near campus, near the Maxwell building. That's coming in. That's like, they're like, we know it's a problem, we've got it planned, like, what do you think about this? And it's, okay, that's great, but what are you doing between now and then? And that's also like, there's so much competitiveness for car parking spaces as well, because it's staff and students that are competing. It's not just students. But I think for students as well, I think like Allerton campus really suffers because they've lost a lot of their car parking space at the moment because of the new building. And then that building will hopefully have more car parking. So it's an ongoing issue. But I think the cost is also an issue. I think for students that are living on campus as well, it's a conflict of interest, because they're like, well, I live on campus, so I should have a car parking space. And then students that aren't living on campus but are commuting in, that are driving, also need to be like, well, I need to park on campus, I need to park somewhere. And it's getting that communication through. I think the cost of car parking is insane, because the university don't control car parking costs. They use a third party because they don't want the hassle of it. It's like saying exactly the same as the accommodation. You're using a third party, great. That's easier for you operationally, but it's worse for students. It's a more negative impact. I think giving students more of an option on how we can look at what other methods they can, whether it's carpooling, so they're sharing, if they've got people like that, perhaps setting something like that up. But that all comes down to communication. What do students need? What do they think will work? What would work for them? What would work for you? What would work for me? What would work for the next generation coming in and students that are here right now? Because there's so many issues with, okay, I've not parked on campus, I've parked on this back street, this back alley, I think my car's going to get broken into, I think my car's going to get keys. But actually, how can we make sure that students are not only safe and secure, whether that's walking back to a lonely car park, but also making sure that we have provisions for new students and students every day that need to be in, from postgraduates to foundation year.
Okay, thank you. And Hattie, the same question for you. Do you think it is possible? Could parking charges be reduced?
I think it needs to be brought back in-house, exactly what I said with accommodation. We shouldn't be using third parties. We've got the resources as a university to be bringing these in-house. That's how most other universities run. But following on from what Evie said, we need to be making sure that if you have paid for a permit, you can actually get a spot. If you are driving in, you should know how much availability there is in that car park, so you're not going to be 40 minutes late to your lecture because you were just driving around Peel Park. And it's giving students that information, and staff, because staff also drive in and they should be able to get to their lectures in time too.
Okay, thank you. And for yourself, what do you think? Can you reduce the price of parking? Very simply.
I think you can. I remember one of my lecturers telling me that she parked and then she walked. So I asked her, where did you park? Like, why did you feel the need to tell us that? She's like, oh, because I parked 20 minutes walk away. Like, that's how far away that she could find parking that was affordable. Because to park, for example, at the Lowry, if you're at the Media City, I think it costs like £6 for 3 to 4 hours or something like that, or something silly like that. But I feel like if the university could control that, I'm sure they probably could not do that for Media City, but absolutely for Peel Park, because I think there's enough car parks for them to have ownership of them. I think it's easy. Why I'm so grateful for something like the Students' Union is because I think it's easier for the university to just let third-party people handle it, which I don't think is fair on our behalf, because when we pay our £9 grand, we're not paying it to the third parties that are handling the parking. You're paying that extra £6 every single day to come to your lecture to cover that. That's completely separate, but you've already paid the other £9,250, whatever it is that it is now, which I don't think is fair. So I think if you're going to be paying so much money towards your fees, that should be included in it, because a lot of students from Salford do commute.
Okay, so sorry, do you want to get in there?
On to that, like, also there's some car parks that are just staff only. I think they need to be staff and student, because at high peak times, like in exam periods or over the Christmas area where you've got a lot of deadlines, car parks are full. And there's staff car parks that are obviously like not being used as much. Like, I live near 2 staff car parks and they're often only at 50% capacity. But if you park there and you're a student, you're going to get a fine. And it's unfair on those students that are commuting in and making that effort. They're getting up a little bit earlier to go and get their car and drive in. So I think that's something that we can do here and now in the meantime while they build a multi-story.
I think it's the advantage of going to a university like Salford, because you have students commuting from everywhere. So whether it's the whole of the region or just from Greater Manchester, and I think that's something that should be accommodated.
Okay, and you're going to come in there, Hattie?
Yeah, just really quickly, there's 2 car parks on Peel Park campus that are not used. There's the one near Chapman and there's the one near the Faith Centre, because they're visitor only.
Yeah.
But I've only ever seen at the most 2 cars in there.
Often,
Yeah.
Why is that not being used?
Like the one by Chapman, like it has the student union van in it, and that's it. There's like a couple of security and maybe a couple of sports centres. That used to be the sports centre car park, but then they've shifted that further away. But that's not being used because that's earmarked for building works. But in the meantime, we
Michelle,
can use it.
You made a point earlier on that there's an extra £6 a day sometimes for parking. So other kind of fees like printing and things like that, should that be included as free? Because you pay such a big fee every year to study here, should those services be free to a student? And can I get the answers as quick and snappy?
Yes,
should it? Yes
they
or no?
should.
Yeah?
Yes.
What do you think?
Use the Inspire scheme. So I've already developed on applying that to union membership costs and lots of other stuff like that. But using that Inspire scheme to promote, to pay for printing for some courses would be amazing, because they're not using it for other resources, but also adapting it for perhaps the parking. Stop using the third party, use the Inspire scheme, and make that more adaptable, make that across the board for all students as well. Like at the moment it's only 3 and 4s, like level 3 and 4, like it should be for all students. As we progress through the years, it will become like all students, but here and now let's get some more money like that we can use as credit in university services such as printing, such as car parking.
Okay, and for yourself, should printing and these kind of services come free?
Yeah, especially when it's a requirement for some courses. Photography students need to print, fine art students need to print. If you have to bind your dissertation, you have to print that. And international students are paying 13 grand, and they get the same service as home students. So I don't understand where that extra 4 grand is going. So yeah, absolutely, that should be included.
Okay, now sorry to cut you off earlier, but the 3 things, if you were elected student union president, what 3 things would you like to change?
I would like to increase integration.
Yes.
I would like to improve student costs overall, whether that's from printing to accommodation. And then I'd like to decrease a lot of stigma around whether it's mental health or asking for help for funding and stuff like that.
Brilliant. Okay, and Evie, what 3 things would you change?
Accountability, inclusivity, and just making sure that everyone's loving their life at Salford.
And when you say accountability, what do you mean by that?
I mean accountability as sabbatical officers for students, course reps, making sure that they're there, but also academics, also lecturers, also like the university when they say, oh yeah, we give you value for money. Well, how accountable are that? And also accountability to like our environment and our campus, whether that's at Media City or on main campus or Allerton.
Okay, so should sabbatical officers be held accountable for their expenses as well?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, I feel that you should be. Like every expense that I've put in, I've had to write exactly what it's for, explain exactly why I've used it, and also I've gone like, do I need this? Is this something that I actually want and need, or is this something that this is preventing me from doing my job? And that's the other thing, like the staff at the Students' Union are amazing, and they're always supporting us and being like, look, we know you're not paid a lot. We're paid the lowest wage across the whole of the university in every sector, so because we're an elected position. So we need those expenses to be able to do the job, because we're not only just being students and living the student life, we're also on like, we can't work a second job, we can't go out and not be there.
But can I ask, you obviously feel very strongly about this, but why aren't the all sabbatical officers' expenses, why aren't they published?
I don't know. Personally, I don't know why. I assume they would be, and that's perhaps me not realising that I've made that mistake. But I think that they should be published, and I should think that the scrutiny committee and the whole like transparency of the student union needs to be updated. We need new policy on it, and working on our new strategic plan that will come into account. And I think being able to tell students exactly what's going on is part of like, I'm a brutally honest conversation person. Like I love that. I love being able to be like hands up in the air, like I know that this is an issue and I'm trying to work on it. I'm looking at doing peer-to-peer stuff. So something that I did in school when you do a group presentation, you each assess each other. Doing that, but at a sabbatical officer level, at a volunteer officer level, and making sure that that's published and having that available on the set dates that it's supposed to be.
Yeah, keeping it transparent.
Yeah.
And for yourself, 3 things you would like to change, Hattie, if you were SU president?
Making sure that every student can actually access their students' union.
Okay.
making sure that students feel like they're getting a fair deal of their degree. And I am going to take Evie's point of accountability, because if people know me, they'll know it's something I'm really passionate about. It's something I actually put as a big idea on the Student Union platform this year, that sabbatical officers should be reporting to Union Council as they do in most other unions.
OK, thank you very much, all of you, for all of your answers there. So thank you very much for that for now. We move on to the final candidates' closing statements. The candidates each have 60 seconds for their closing statements, and we start with Hattie Ruddock.
So you've heard my manifesto and you've heard my views on crucial student issues, but what you might not know is why I'm running. I'm running because I don't want students to have the same experience that I've had in my 3 years at Salford. I want the SU to take a proactive approach in supporting students, all students, not just a select few. You need a president that's not going to stick to the status quo, that will focus on what actually affects students and will change this union into a place where you actually want to go. So for a different kind of SU, vote for Hattie.
Thank you, Hattie. And Evie, your closing statement, please.
Okay, thank you so much for listening, everyone. I want to continue the work that I've been doing on housing and sustainability, as well as have time for you, the students, to support, represent and help you with your current studies and your life at Salford. As a president, I will work with current student issues, represent all, collaborate and coordinate with other sabbatical officers and our new volunteer officers. Mae Jemison, the first African-American woman in space, said, "We have the opportunity to create the future and decide what that looks like." As a president, that's what I would like to do. I will be accountable, available and dedicated to the role. I will be on campus here for you. I will be listening, I will be there, and I will be contactable. One vote can make a difference. Be the change, vote Evie President.
Thank you, Evie. And Michelle, what's your closing statement?
Mine is, Einstein once said, "A ship is always safe at shore, but that is not what it was built for." And to me, that's something that I keep saying as part of my campaign, because I believe it's easier to go with the safe options, the faces that you see in your students' union every day, and that's fine, because I know each and every single one of these ladies would do a great job. But if you vote for me, you're voting for someone who has currently no ties to the student union, who is being elected solely and strictly for your benefit and to work for you. Because I believe in this role, we can grow together. And what I always say is, it's about being transparent, being honest and clear and fair about everything that you're presenting and all the ideas that you're giving out to the people that elected you. But most importantly, that it's a partnership. I won't be able to do my job as president without you.
OK. Now, one more question for all of you. Just 3 qualities that would make you a great president. Michelle, if you'd like to begin.
3 qualities that would make me a great president. I think that the fact that I don't take no for an answer. Ask the Manchester City Council, they will tell you. I think I have enough confidence to fight for those that can't fight for themselves, or those that didn't run for president. Because I believe every single one of all 22 odd thousands of us could have run for president. But also, I think because of the experience that I've had, I understand what it's like to be in unequal positions. And I think being a fair and equal in all my decisions is what would make me a good president.
Thank you. Evie, 3 qualities that would make you a great president.
Friendly, honest and pragmatic.
Thank you very much. And Hattie?
Transparent, approachable and passionate.
So, approachable.
Yeah.
How would you define yourself as approachable? What makes you approachable?
People know they can come to me. Like, I'm a very open book and I don't really believe in judging people at all. And if you, for example, are in the business school, you know that I was always there for students when I was student rep and when I was school rep, and I have an open door policy just in life generally.
That's great. Thank you very much, all of you. Thank you. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Please give a round of applause to our presidential candidates for 2019. They've done a fantastic job this evening, and that is all from us here at Quays TV, coming to you live from Media City UK.
Thank you so much to our studio audience for joining us here tonight, and thank you for watching within the university and at home.
Voting is open until tomorrow at 4 p.m, so make sure to vote for your next president. Voting is also open for all other voluntary positions within the university.
That's all from us. We'll see you next year. Goodbye.
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 No, well done.
Oh no.